Vauxhall's Antara won't be the first car that springs to mind if you're looking for a decent, stylish and capable 5-seat SUV, more comfortable off-road than a Ford Kuga, but less extreme than a Land Rover Freelander. But if that is your buying brief, this heavily revised model is well worth considering. Plusher, smarter, quieter and better to drive than before. The era of the affordable, road-orientated compact 4x4 is a pretty recent one, broadly traceable back to the early 90s when buyers bored of family hatchbacks sought solace in SUVs. Now, these people would have liked to have been able to buy a Land Rover Discovery or one of the smaller Toyota Land Cruisers, but they couldn't. So most of them bought a Vauxhall instead, a crude Isuzu-engineered device, a boxy thing called the Frontera, which sold in prodigious numbers following its launch in 1991. Now, this should have been a springboard for Vauxhall to dominate the RAV4 and Freelander sector just as it was taking off at the turn of the century, but it wasn't. The brand didn't significantly develop the Frontera. They inexplicably failed to replace it at its demise in 2004, and it took until 2007 for the Griffin badge to return to SUV motoring in the shape of this car, the Antara. Even then, the mistakes kept coming. This Korean-built car had, it turned out, been developed for the undemanding Asian market rather than the more exacting European one, which meant that it struggled amongst Freelander folk. Ride, refinement and overall finish way down on what buyers in this segment had come to expect. It all had to change, and it has. New brooms at Vauxhall have shaken out the old complacency, wresting product development control of models like this away from their Korean division and creating in this Antara a smarter, better finished product that should be quieter to ride in and far better to drive. Is it too late for Vauxhall to once again become a major player in the volume part of the SUV market? Well, if the initiative is to be regained, the turnaround must begin with this revised Antara, the model that we're looking at here. Let's check it out. Now, I remember from driving Vauxhall's old Frontera SUV that it had a pretty crude set of engines, but back in the 90s, buyers had little choice but to put up with them. Now, that wasn't the case when Vauxhall launched this Antara in 2007 with a 2-litre diesel that sounded tractor-like against Land Rover Freelander and Toyota RAV4 alternatives. It wasn't good enough, so it's being junked in favour of the vastly improved Euro 5 compliant 2.2-litre diesel that I'm driving here. This time round, the brand isn't wasting our time with petrol engine options that hardly anyone buying in this sector ever really wants. So choice in the Antara range is limited to a simple selection between 163 and 184 bhp variants of this single 2.2-litre unit. There's even a nod to the current trend for offering cars like this without the kind of four-wheel drive system that you think would be a key reason for buying them in the first place. So buyers of the entry-level 163 brake horsepower Antara can choose between either 2 or 4-driven wheels. In the unlikely event that you owned an old Antara, then the first thing you'd notice when setting off in this one is just how much quieter it is. A whole range of small but significant tweaks have halved the amount of cabin noise you get, so there's more encouragement to push on and explore the limits of the power on offer. In the 163 brake horsepower variant, that'll see you from rest to 60 in 9.9 seconds on the way to a top speed of 117 miles an hour. If you go for the 184 brake horsepower model that I'm driving here, then rest to 60 falls to 9.6 seconds on the way to a top speed of 124 miles an hour. Now, if the figures for the more powerful variant don't sound to be much of an improvement, then that's because they don't properly illustrate the mid-range pulling power benefits delivered by the increase in torque from 350 Newton meters in the base 163 brake horsepower version to a thumping 400 Newton meters in this 184 brake horsepower model. As for handling, well, if anything, the step forward made here is even greater than the one made with refinement. As the engineers promise, it rolls less, steers more accurately and grips more tenaciously, so you'll feel more confident on those occasions when you might have to push it hard. Don't get me wrong, ultimate handling capability like that delivered by a Ford Kuga or even a Toyota RAV4 isn't quite within this Antara's reach. But it's worth pointing out that those two rivals are more road-orientated in their outlook. On the muddy stuff, an Antara would breeze past both of them with ease. Ah yes, the muddy stuff. You'll be wanting to know how this car handles that. Or perhaps you won't if you're one of those being targeted by the entry-level two-wheel drive version. Assuming though that you're one of those who sees the provision of just two driven wheels as being rather pointless in a car of this kind, then you'll be interested to learn that there's plenty of wheel articulation for uneven surfaces. There's a hill start assist setup to help you get up steep slopes, and a descent control system operable via this button here that'll help you get down them. Mind you, from that list, you shouldn't run away with the idea that this is any kind of Land Rover. There's no low-range transfer case, lockable diffs or anything like that, and a ground clearance figure of just 176mm is pretty limiting when it comes to the bumpiest of tracks. Still, the off-road stats don't make bad reading. There's an approach angle of 20 degrees, a departure angle of 24 degrees, a ramp angle of 18 degrees, and a fording depth through water of up to 450mm. The adaptive four-wheel drive system hasn't changed that much. It'll keep you in two-wheel drive, front-driven for most of the time, but as conditions change, it's able to instantly and automatically send up to 50% of drive to the rear wheels and move you into four-wheel drive as the weather and the surface demands. Now, one of the few things that wasn't really wrong with this car in its original form was the way that it looked, but the stylists have tweaked things anyway. So there's a revised front grille with a V-form that continues on up the bonnet into the A-pillars. Moving down the car, dark-toned cladding around the door sill and floor areas is supposed to be a mark of SUV-dom, while at the back there are bolder rear light clusters. I'm not sure if it all improves things by very much, but at least the purposeful lines remain smart and neat, but not especially small. This is, after all, a slightly larger car than a Toyota RAV4 or a Land Rover Freelander. Not large enough in this case, though, to accommodate a third seating row. Now, on paper, this seems a little curious because this car does, after all, share exactly the same platform as Chevrolet's 7-seat Captiva. But the two cars are aimed at very different audiences. The Chevy at families, this Vauxhall at younger or more mature buyers who will certainly appreciate the extra rear seat space that comes without having to shoehorn in a third row of seating. There being plenty of head and legroom, thanks in part to the provision of a slightly longer wheelbase than would be normal for this class of car. You'd certainly rather be here in the back than in a Land Rover Freelander, a Toyota RAV4 or a Ford Kuga. It'd be even better if the seats were able to slide backwards and forwards, but you can at least recline them for greater comfort on longer journeys. And there's the option of a multi-function centre armrest. Now, once you access it over a highish lip, boot space behind, well, it isn't the largest in the class, but you do get 420 litres of room up to the top of the seat backs. It's slightly compromised by the highish floor. But you can use the space that there is very effectively, especially if you go for the Flex Organiser system, which uses these rails bolted onto the side panels, onto which all manner of extra cost hooks, rods, nets and various other items can be clipped. There's also an underfloor compartment so that you can put things away and organise your stuff more neatly. If all that's not enough, then you can of course push forward the split folding rear seats to free up more room, a total of 865 litres if you load to the top of the seat backs, or 1,420 litres if you load up to the ceiling. Up front, apart from a bit of fake wood on entry-level models, it's a smart and classy cockpit with expensive feeling soft touch trim and metallic inserts, upgraded seats and smarter instrument graphics. The main change here is the addition of an electronic handbrake. Not a feature I especially like on any car, but even Luddites like me can appreciate how much space this feature frees up in the centre between the seats. There's a really deep storage box down here now. Other little storage features to cope with the detritus of family life include a pull-out tray under the front passenger seat. You've also got a sunglasses holder incorporated into the roof lining, string back compartments on the back of the front seats, and a parking ticket holder in the dashboard. Antara prices sit in the £20,000 to £27,000 bracket. If you're looking at the entry-level 163 brake horsepower version, then you'll need a premium of around £2,300 to go from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive. But bear in mind that that also includes extra equipment. If you are looking at four-wheel drive, then the premium to go between a 163 brake horsepower Antara and a 184 brake horsepower variant is about £1,000. Now, some have criticised Vauxhall for not offering 7 seats with this car, even though the floor plan will take it. Though that isn't a criticism you often hear levelled at 5-seat Land Rover Freelanders or Toyota RAV4s, which, by the way, will cost you around £3,000 more model for model than this car. This model is based on the same floor plan as Chevrolet's 7-seat Captiva, which can offer those 7 seats and four-wheel drive for around £1,300 less than a 163 brake horsepower Antara, but does have soggier handling and has less power. Hyundai's Santa Fe could offer you 7 seats for less money too, but Vauxhall reckons that marques like Chevrolet and Hyundai are value brands that don't necessarily compete. So what does? Well, this car's two closest competitors are probably Volkswagen's Tiguan and Ford's Kuga, which in two-wheel drive form will both cost you a couple of £1,000 more than an Antara. But in four-wheel drive, guys, which is probably what most buyers will want, are priced pretty comparably. The Volkswagen may be a couple of £100 below, the Ford may be a couple of £100 above. If you're looking at a 184 brake horsepower Antara, you might also want to consider Nissan's almost identically priced X-Trail. Whichever 2.2 litre diesel Antara model you choose, the 163 brake horsepower variant with two or four-wheel drive, or this 184 brake horsepower model, you should find your car to be decently equipped. All versions come with air conditioning, power electric mirrors, all-round electric windows, a decent quality MP3 compatible CD stereo with AUX in-point and further controls on the leather covered steering wheel, plenty of 12-volt sockets scattered around the car, hill start assist to stop you drifting backwards on uphill junctions, tyre pressure monitoring, alloy wheels, front fog lamps and roof rails. With all four-wheel drive variants, where there's the option of a 6-speed automatic gearbox if you don't like the rather notchy 6-speed manual, you can also expect extra stuff like automatic headlamps, cruise control, heated seats, dark tinted rear windows and parking sensors to deal with the problem of judging where the sloping bonnet ends. There's also an automatic vehicle levelling system which maintains a constant vehicle ride height regardless of load, and also when you're towing, which won't be disrupted, by the way, thanks to a towing stability system which stops your rear trailer from swaying from side to side. And as you'd expect with a vehicle of this kind, there's an endless options list. My favourite feature on which is a flex fit bike system which slides out from beneath the rear bumper. Safety-wise, there are all the expected items: twin front, side and curtain airbags, ISOFIX child seat fastenings in the rear seats, and the usual electronic assistance for stability, traction and braking. How times have changed. When this Antara was first launched back in 2007, its CO2 emissions varied between 198 and 238 grams per kilometre. If you tried to sell an SUV with figures like that today, buyers would simply laugh and walk away. So a huge priority for the engineers in developing the higher tech 2.2 litre diesel this car now has was in developing its green-fingeredness, or at least in making it as green-fingered as any vehicle with a 2.3 tonne curb weight ever can be. And they haven't done too badly. The figures for 4x4 versions of this Antara see it pushing out 175 grams per kilometre of CO2 and delivering 42.8 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle. Although those figures, I have to say, take quite a hit if you go for the 6-speed automatic gearbox. If you want to improve them, then the only way is to opt for the two-wheel drive 163 brake horsepower variant that around 30% of Antara buyers will choose. Although the improvement in the figures won't be huge. You'll get 44.8 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out 167 grams per kilometre of CO2. What else? Insurance groups? Well, they range between 25 and 28. All of which perhaps leaves only the question of what the word Antara actually means. Apparently, it's either the equivalent of a verse in Hindustani classical music or a prescription drug designed to lower cholesterol. Now, though this Vauxhall can't guarantee to combat the effects of an artery-clogging fry-up, it at least encourages a rather more active lifestyle. No, it isn't the most capable nor the most innovative 4x4 on the market, but what it does offer is neat styling, decent build quality, a badge that most people trust, backed up by a massive dealer network, tried and tested engines, and a relatively affordable price tag. For the first time in its history, Vauxhall has here produced a really decent SUV. And though this revised Antara is unlikely to trouble the top sellers in this sector, it does offer encouraging signs for the future. It seems that the GM conglomerate that controls this British brand really can produce a class competitive car of this type. As for this model, well, it's one of those unusual things, a Vauxhall with rarity value. Though there are rivals that either handle more sharply or are better off-road, there are a few that achieve a better balance between these two extremes. A thoroughly rejuvenated product then, at last.